Yes, sirree. Peace, love, and Black Power family. Welcome to another episode of Get This Wisdom Live. I am your co-host for the evening, Shakti Sterner. We got our brother, Brian the Creator Liggins, on with us again. And we have a powerful evening coming up. We actually have a double header tonight. This is part one. And on this segment, we will be talking with Nataki Kambon from Let's Buy Black 365 and also the Connect series they got popping off over there. That's real powerful information and content that they are sharing with the family. So while we're waiting for Nataki to join us, Brian and I are going to dialogue a little bit, catch the family up on certain things, and fill you in on a little bit of Black ground of the platform they have going on there and how that fits in with the ultimate goal of African liberation mentally, spiritually, and then leading to the physical as well. So, Brother Bryant, the creator, the powerhouse, the tech guru, everything wrapped up in one. I'm gonna step back and allow you to share a little bit about who you are with the viewers in case they didn't catch us last time and they wondering who was Brian the creator. This is your time to let the family know what's going on.
Righteous. Well, as you said, I'm Brian the creator. Again, I'm the founder and the design director at Blue Beak Branding and Marketing. There on that platform, I help businesses, specifically Black-owned businesses, grow and develop from a brand standpoint. From there, I joined Revolutionary Mind Cinema. We have documentaries, we do music videos, video, and we got Brick the Foundation who does the music for us and everything. So from that platform, we got a lot of content coming out. We got a documentary specifically coming up called Revolutionary Exodus, and that's going to be a powerful film. And of course, Get This Wisdom, I am the brand director, so brand and design director. So we getting the magazine all tightened up and everything. I'm just a creator. That's the best way. That's the reason it's in the name. It's the best way that I can explain myself, because I don't really like being set into the definitions that define what I do, like a designer or a marketer, or I don't see myself as one of those individually, but I take all of those. I happen to be able to do all of those things collectively, and it's because I see the creation form, the format. That's how I look at everything. You know what I'm saying? I look at it from a form of creation. So
I wish I had some sound effects like Knowledge Born has over there on Do the Knowledge Radio, because we got our sister on with us. She done jumped on us, sneaked into the background. The all-powerful Empress Nataki is in the building. What's going on, sister girl? How you doing?
Peace, queen.
How is everybody doing?
We're blacktastic.
And what kind of sound effects were you hoping for?
She got them all day.
Maybe like a 21 gun salute. Pop, 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 pop. And let it know that is about to go down.
All right. Yeah, it's so good to be here. You all are looking blacknificent tonight, so that's fantastic.
Queen, I don't jump on camera. That I'm like the Mad Hatter in the background.
I still don't really know what you look like, because you are super incognito.
That's the way to be. You'll see me though. You'll see me. They trying to break me out of that right now. Brian and Callie are trying to, trying to reform me a little bit. I'm catching up to speed. Don't worry about it. Indeed, Queen. So thank you for joining us tonight. Nataki of Let's Buy Black 365. You got the Connect series going on over there. So we're not even about to go no further. I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna close my mouth for those who didn't see the last episode. Do you mind sharing with them who you are and what you do for our people?
Yeah. So I'm Nataki Kambon. I do, I guess, a couple of things for our people. I have many talents, but I'm a firm believer in focusing. So right now, my two main activities, I'm the national spokesperson for Let's Buy Black 365. And within the Let's Buy Black 365 movement, there are a couple of components, including there's a crowdsourced business directory and a social network. We're also partnered with Abibi to Mikasa, which is the largest Black social network on the planet, all focused around Black liberation and Pan-Africanism and just connecting Black people and Black language and all these different kinds of things, or African languages rather. And so Let's Buy Black 365 is really a Black economic empowerment movement that is not so much focused on the businesses. You know, there are a lot of business to business organizations, but it's really focused on how Black consumers can aggregate around the collective idea that we each have an individual contribution to make to the change that we want to see in the world. And we each can decide where, with our dollars, we can either choose to finance Black liberation or finance the system of racism and white supremacy. And so the Let's Buy Black 365 movement is an economic container, as many have defined it, that helps Black individuals connect with those resources. And then our social network app called Connect is there to help people connect with each other. And then we also have the show and the media component called Connect, which is all about the best in Black music, culture, education, entertainment. It's just a holistic show where we have fun, we get deep, we get, we get real on a range of topics and bring on just a range of experts in a lot of different areas and some, individuals. And we've covered all different kinds of things from, gardening and cooking to, deconstructing the Black Panther movie from a woke perspective, a woke and Pan-African perspective. And we've met Black people in unusual careers so that, we get so many people on jobs who say, I don't like what I'm doing, but we've shown people how you can actually enter into a career where you can actually help Black liberation in a professional capacity. So it's a really great show. And it's me and my co-host is a brother named Talib Saber, who is I always say Washington, D.C. He's actually a barred attorney in Maryland. And so, that's that's me and Let's Buy Black and Connect. But professionally, my day job, that's a lot. But my day job, I am a business strategist and management consultant. So the short answer to what I do is you have so many people who want to be entrepreneurs and want to start businesses, or people who have businesses that are just stuck. And what I do is help them get from the idea and just visionary phase with all the lofty goals and things. And we take the vision and whatever their investment is into their company, and we turn it into a successful, profitable, sustainable enterprise. Usually within a 30 to 60 to 90 day period, we get them operational, functional, and we do it in a way where whether they're working a full-time job for someone else or whether they actually manage the business on their own, we come in and do everything kind of around them and of course in part with them, but to set up everything so that they can start from a solid foundation. And that's what I've had the pleasure of doing for the last 17 years. It'll be 18 years in June.
Righteous. Forgive my daughter right now. She's excited hearing about the Black business and she wants some of that Black money. I ain't mad at her. However, so that's dope. You've been doing this a long time as far as being a business consultant and that tying that in with Let's Buy Black 365. So with what's going on the platform, you spoke upon the Connect series and having the segments on gardening and things of that nature. Who have been some of the people that you've had on the platform thus far?
There have been cameos and guest appearances from a number of people. Of course, we just did a recap show and I'm blanking on everybody right this minute, but we've had I know Professor Griff has something. We, of course, have, aired some stuff from Get This Wisdom in the first episode. I know we had Dr. Obadale Kambon. He's, a lot of people follow him. He happens to be my biological brother. We had several Black Power Award nominees from like United Front and some of those places. We had the president of the National Association of Black Scuba Divers. He was on the episode about uncommon careers because they're actually doing underwater archaeology to document the slave history that is now no longer even being taught in schools. People are learning that slavery almost didn't even happen. And so that organization is actually bringing people in to learn scuba diving so that we can have our own documentation and we could be the own tellers of our history and culture. At just, a number of people. My parents were on one episode with the Barudis from Atlanta. It was an episode that featured two couples who had combined been together for 75 years, who both represent Black liberation, Pan-Africanism, Black love, and Black community. And that was one of the most popular episodes of the show. The wisdom that we had each couple on separately, but the wisdom that they each gave was just out of this world. We have Veronica Conway on, who we did a 3-part series on relationships. We've had Black business owners. It's been unbelievable. We had Ruby Lathan, who's got a famous cooking show, who helped us make some vegan cooking delicacies and way, I guess, before the 18 years. Back in college, I started a vegan catering company out of my dorm room. And so I did a couple of cooking segments too. So, I mean, it's just been, I haven't even touched the surface. It was an incredible first season, and, just really looking forward to what's next. So.
Definitely. So what I want to ask you right now, Queen, what's been going on with Connect and 365? What's the overall vision for that, and what does the Let's Buy Black family hope to do with Connect as far as, adding on its little piece of empowerment to our community?
Yeah. It's funny, as you said it brought up one other episode I forgot to mention. We at the beginning of April, we several members of Let's Buy Black 365 in 2016 participated in a conference called the State of the Black World Conference. And as a follow-up to that, there was an economic summit that took place at the beginning of April that is looking at how do we actually implement, not just in a theoretical way, but on a citywide scale, how do we implement Black economic empowerment in some form, of Black sovereignty, to the extent that you can have sovereignty as any group in this country. You can't technically ever own property, but there are groups that are able to operate somewhat autonomously. We see Chinatown and Little Italy and these kind of places that do it. But looking at creating that in a way that merges the best Black investors, business people, activists, city planners, developers, etc. And we participated in that in the first week of April. And that was really incredible. I was one of the main speakers, and I was a little intimidated because I spoke just before Danny Glover. And, many people know that, in addition to his acting, he is a very big activist who is involved with a number of social causes, including the fight for reparations. And one of the ways that, you know, a lot of people think of reparations in terms of it being like a check that's going to show up at your door, but, you know, in tangible ways that have happened for other communities who actually have received reparations, it is usually in the form of business and economic development. And so that event will play into a lot of what's happening. And one of the other things that's happening, in addition to helping to create those bases within local cities, so that, you know, whether you are an entrepreneur who's trying to grow your business, or whether you're an individual who says, you know, right now I'm giving all of my labor capital away to somebody else, and that's why our community is not getting ahead, because I'm always working for someone else who doesn't look like me. There'll be opportunities for people to get, you know, sustainable employment with Black people and Black enterprises, and Black enterprises to help influence the politics that makes the laws that control, you know, what police get to be in our communities and all these things. So, you know, everything is interconnected. So that's a big, big part of what's going on. And the other part is just within Connect. And, you know, everyone watching is welcome to get involved. I can give the text to join number. You know, we're inviting people to to come on the show who have, you know, knowledge and who are actually doing things. So our show is a little bit different. You know, we don't really talk about all the things that we're going to do. All the guests on the show, and somebody pointed that out. They're like, wow, you know, none of the guests on the show are people who are, you know, just kind of talking at people about what we should be doing. Every guest is actually doing it in a real practical, fundamental way. And I think that's why people are so excited about it, because it's not just, you know, theory or I know Dr. George Fraser always talks about how, you know, Black people will lecture ad nauseum about things, but when you actually ask them what they're doing, you know, they kind of cricket, chirp. But, you know, our show is all about people who are doing it big, and who actually live the models that they're talking about. So, you know, we're inviting people who want to get involved with the show. We've got people all over the country who are, you know, highlighting things, and are going to be a part of season 2. So that's really exciting. And the last thing that's going on, earlier this year, we talked about an initiative that we were rolling out, and we're really kicking that into high gear now, where what I do for a living in terms of consulting, I've shared with you before, one of my, not so much regrets. I mean, I love what I do, but one of the things that has been challenging for me is that I create multi-million-dollar businesses, but none of the clients that I've had over the last 17, 18 years have looked like me. And I have not had one Black client to do, you know, the full service package. And, you know, there could be a number of reasons for that. I've done, you know, consultations, but the mindset in the Black community, it tends to be a little bit different than in other communities. And we tend to get a lot more, I don't know. I have an article that I wrote that talks about some of the lies that we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better. And some of the things you hear when people try and rationalize why their businesses are not growing, or try and rationalize, you know, why it's taking so long. You know, when I said that, you know, we get businesses to the point of, you know, P&L or income statement profitability, you know, within 30 to 60 to 90 days. And, you know, we have Black owned businesses that have been in business for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, and they're barely eking by. The average small Black owned business makes $18,000 a year, which is below the poverty line for an individual. And if you look at $18,000 for a business, that definitely means they're not hiring any employees. It definitely means they're not, you know, able to secure good pricing from vendors, because, you know, vendors tend to give you prices when you're ordering, you know, large volumes. And if you only do $18,000 a year, you're barely ordering anything. You can't get good in, you just can't invest in the kinds of systems that make businesses successful. And so as part of Let's Buy Black 365, we want Black people to have more avenues to patronize quality Black-owned businesses, because we say it can't just be Black-owned. It needs to be a quality Black-owned business. And so we put forward an initiative in partnership with New Business Solutions, my company, to offer $1 million of resources available to help subsidize Black-owned businesses who are really serious about getting to the next level, who are, sick of the excuses and sick of watching their competition, beat them by leaps and bounds. I get people who are like, yeah, I've been in business for 20 years and, my competition has 6 locations and I, have one and I work it by myself. That's not a business, So we're really, really excited to be able to do that with people. And you're going to hear more about that with the rollout of the campaigns that are happening this summer.
Dope. Family, if you have any questions for Nataki, you can enter them into the chat box and we'll get them answered for you. While we're on the topic of Black business empowerment and having certain elements that can be conducive to the growth of Black businesses within our community, it leads me into a question that Brian actually asked Red and Blue last week. No, it was maybe 2 weeks ago, right here on Get This Wisdom Live. He spoke upon the combination of resources within certain establishments coming together to create one big umbrella, and how that would look and moving forward in cooperative economics. So I just wanted to bring Brian up to see if he wanted to touch bases on that with you and see what that looks like from your vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
Facts. Because that's very important to me, and I'm glad you brought that up, Shakti. Because as I was sitting here, like that's all that's going through my mind. Like I'm loving when I'm hearing from you, Nataki. Like because that's the stuff that I preach to. I'm saying, like business. I'm very, very picky with business. I look up the cats, like, I'm watching the Shark Tanks and I'm doing my background checks on everybody on Shark Tank. I'm looking into their personal stories. I'm saying Daymond John has some things that he talks about all the time about thinking outside the box as far as growing a business. He gave like the fact that he only had the same shirts that he put on physical bodies for 2 years straight before he actually made any money. He didn't go and try to buy a bunch of inventory. I'm saying? He had those same shirts that he gave. He had 10 shirts that he put on bodies, took it back. Like he gave it to LL Cool J, he wore it in that movie, and then he got it back from him and he put it on somebody else's body. And then he actually had hundreds of brand ambassadors across the country who helped him grow his business, as well as renting out his own personal space in his home for $75 a week for people to stay there and work in his business. So not only did he come up with a plan, and he had a well-oiled machine running and not in a manner that most people think a business should run, but he also had people who were dedicated to actually paying to be there, to be a part of his business. What I'm saying? So like that blows my mind. But with all of that being said, like with what you guys are doing, like what are some of the challenges and like how are you guys overcoming those? Like how you empowering the Black business owners to go from the one man show, the one man team, to being a company? And then do they have a 5-year, 10-year plan? Are they then merging together? To do, like you said, to have legislative capabilities and those type of things.
Yeah. So I heard a couple of things within your question. The story that you talked about Daymond John, and some of those stories, I do sometimes caution people because, like the story that Joe Dudley talks about, he did something similar when he started Dudley Enterprises. He had grease jars, and when people finished with the grease, in order to get more, they had to give back the jars so he could refill them. And I think he started that company with like $15 or $25. And you hear those stories, but those are the exception. And the reason why they're so popular is because they are the vast exception to the rule. Most of businesses that take that approach will never get anywhere. And so in terms of the business model, I tend to say, you know, you can look at those for inspiration, but don't fall into the trap of saying, oh, well, if I just struggle for long enough, and I just believe in myself, eventually I'll be successful. And, you know, I compare that to, you know, how YouTube works, for example. You can produce amazing content, brilliant content, but people produce brilliant content all day, every day. You know, there are literally millions of YouTube videos uploaded every day, but what percentage of them actually go viral? And there is kind of a science to how to get a video to go viral. So you can keep doing it over and over again, literally every day, and never achieve anything. Or you can take an approach that is tried and true and what your competition is doing, so that you're actually setting yourself up with the right foundation and not hoping to trip onto success. So, you know, it's those kinds of things where I say, you know, when we study business, it's better to study the models that are not the glorious exceptions to the rule, because for every one story like that, there are literally tens of thousands of stories of people who died broke and penniless and with nothing because they were hoping that one day it would catch on. So in terms of what we're doing to empower people, that $1 Million Service Initiative is one of the ways that we're empowering people. It's giving people an access to a pool of resources and services that are, one, not often accessible, because, you know, you're talking about services that are normally, you know, $50,000 to $100,000, where, you know, people are investing that in a business. And I'm sorry, I'm going to take a step back, because one of the biggest problems that I see with a lot of small businesses, and sometimes I won't go off on a tangent, but I get very frustrated when we talk about side hustles and the side hustle mentality. A side hustle is not a business, and very infrequently do side hustles actually turn into profitable ventures and the kinds of sustainable ventures that will allow someone to transition from side hustler to an entrepreneur with an enterprise where he's employing a number of people in his community. He's an influencer in his community. He's doing things on a big enough scale that he can actually make a difference towards he or she can actually make a difference towards Black economic empowerment. And so what we're talking about is for business owners who are actually serious, and that's whether it's an existing business or a startup. There are 3 things that are needed to create a successful business using the traditional approach, not the get rich quick approach that we tend to hear in some of these stories where you hear somebody had nothing, but then they blew up overnight. And that is, so everybody is clear on the vision part. Having an idea, having a great idea is something that, you know, everybody has great ideas all the time. You can look at tons of products and be like, oh, I thought of that. Why didn't I change that, turn that into, so, the idea is the easy part. And it's sometimes the least important part. And I say that because think of all the products on the market or all the companies that you know that exist that have really crappy customer service or a really crappy product, but they're making millions because, hey, if I can get 10% of, of the, couple of million people, hey, that's 10% sales that I would not have had. So sometimes the product and the idea is the least important part, but within our community, it tends to be the part that we focus on more and above anything. So we have a great idea that nobody knows about and never moves, the needle never moves to actually actualize it. So what we're doing to help businesses is with the other sides of the business, starting with the right foundation. Every business that I know of that has a success model plan has someone like me in terms of a management consultant, someone who knows, because you never know what you don't know. And if you take the approach that I'm just going to keep doing or I'm going to YouTube video my way to learning what I need to know about this area of my business, that is the wrong approach. And it's the long approach. And it is usually the kind of approach that will lead you to make some kind of misstep that will end up costing you hundreds or thousands of dollars. We don't, if we're talking about the need for Black liberation, we don't have time for people to trip their way to success. So having a management consultant, having an accounting or financial advisor. And a lot of times when you say financial advisor, people think investment. But, in this case, I do both management consulting and the financial advising from an accounting perspective, where we're looking at your books, we're looking at your numbers, we're seeing what the cash flow is like. We're using the financial reports to make decisions about what should we be spending money on? What's the best way to turn the cash or the working capital that we have into more money to be able to grow the business and finance what we want to do. And if you're not having these kinds of conversations and you're just so busy being busy, I hear all the time. In fact, I did a consultation for someone earlier this morning who heard me speak last week, who said, I don't really have time to think about what my goals are, what my timeline should be, and what my budget is, because I'm so busy every day. I'm making money and, there's money in the bank, so I'm okay. Well, if you don't know what your profit margin is, then you don't know whether you're making money. If you don't know, if you're that busy that you can't stop to manage your business, then you're not doing business well. I know multimillionaires and I know people who are, just starting, and every successful entrepreneur I know has time carved out to ensure their business is successful. So when I hear the excuse about, well, I'm too busy to focus on this right now, it means you don't have those needed models of success. So what we're doing is giving people access. I will qualify it. It's not free. But it's, literally like a tenth of the price that it may normally cost someone to get access to this kind of information. I'll share one quick story that I think I shared last time. There was someone I met with in December who said in 2016 that he wanted to become an entrepreneur. This is obviously not a brother because I haven't had any Black clients yet, but he said he wanted to become an entrepreneur in 2017, and it got to be November and he realized he hadn't even started. And so he met with me in the beginning of December. We went over the goal, the timeline, and the budget he had to actually create the success that he wanted. And he proceeded to do his regular scheduled family trip. He went to Morocco from the beginning of December to almost the middle of January. So while he was out of the country, I think we Skyped one time, but we didn't really talk. But while he was out of the country, we incorporated his business. We developed his marketing plan. We launched his marketing plan. We developed his recruiting scopes of work, recruited, hired, staffed his company, came up with all of his contract documents, et cetera, and did a rollout campaign for him so that when he got back, like January 7th or something, the Monday, January 15th, we landed him his first client. They signed the contract that day and said they were going to pay the retainer. He called me late that night and was like, they didn't pay. Oh my gosh, maybe I lost the client. They ended up wiring the money on Tuesday, and it was like $15,000. So, and he's closed $165,000. And our service fee was not $165,000. So he's made a profit even from, that initial, investment. But that happened really in the course of like 45 days. And the company is definitely slated. Well, it's already made a profit in the first quarter. It's going to probably triple that in the second quarter of this year. And I tell that story to say, when I hear people talk about they've been in business 5 years and they're barely making money and they're too busy to stop to grow the business, and they're hoping to get to 50,000 or 100,000, it's because I know immediately that there are some standard business operations that are not being implemented, and we have to start there. And we have to stop the get rich quick approach. Like, maybe I can just do it on my own. And the last point I'll make on that is I have an article or two different articles. One where I talk about a problem in the Black community is or not just in the Black community, it's not about the Black community, but just entrepreneurs who will lie to themselves and kind of convince themselves that these are good qualities when they're actually hurting our business. One is the firefighter mentality, where, it went from my goal was to be an entrepreneur, but now I'm putting out fires all the time. And I'm so great at putting out fires, and, I can handle this. And it was just like, well, did you get into business to become an entrepreneur or to become a firefighter? Because those are two different professions. And not knocking being a firefighter, but if that's not what you got in business to do, then it's a problem. One, that you're constantly putting out fires, and why is there not a system in place to prevent the fires in the first place? So, that's one. The other one is I hear people say, oh yeah, well, I'm doing my own accounting. Yeah. I went on LegalZoom or something and I got my own contracts, and I'm doing all this by myself. Those are not good qualities, because there's a reason people went to law school and had to pass the bar and do all this to be able to practice contract law. And the chances that you're going to just download a document off the internet that's going to afford you with the kind of protections that you need are not likely. And there are a lot of lawyers who love those websites because they get so many clients who, thought, oh, I'm going to LegalZoom my way to legal protection. And that's not enough. I get a lot of people, especially at the end of November, beginning of December, who are like, help me. I did my own accounting for the year and this is a mess. I don't know what I did wrong, but help me clean this up. So, again, did you get into business to be an entrepreneur or to try and do your own tasks? And, to that point, I talk about, just because even if you had the skills, just because you could do it doesn't mean you should do it. Because as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur's role is to grow the business. And so if you're like, well, I can make my own copies, why would I pay somebody to do that? Well, if you're paying someone, you could pay someone, I don't know, $15 an hour to make copies. And your time could be spent bringing in income. You're going to stop a revenue generating activity just to save the $10 an hour. That's a bad business decision. What you're doing is not saving $10 an hour. You're losing $150 an hour if that's how much money you could have brought in. So it's these kinds of concepts that, we're not so much doing training, but these are the kinds of things that you can be freed up to even think about when you start with the right platform. So that's how we're empowering businesses in a meaningful way, because the grind, side hustle, living paycheck to paycheck almost approach that many small businesses are struggling with it doesn't work. And so we're offering people a way to stop drowning in their own company and really step into entrepreneurship.
Righteous. Okay. That's what's up. I think I said, I guess I must have worded it wrong, because it kind of sounded like from your response that I made Daymond John like a get rich quick. That was not a get rich quick story. That didn't happen for him.
No, I'm familiar with the story. Yeah,
he made strategic moves and built the platform, and that's what you're saying, like not spending money in the wrong areas. So he didn't spend money in the wrong areas by having inventory, going to trade shows without anybody knowing he was coming. He wanted people coming to the trade shows looking for him. So, but with that being said, the next part of the question that I don't think you really touched on was which was what Shakti has said, which was how do we get it from the small business, even to a business that's making money, to a business that's like hiring people, like for example, like our more so like the manufacturing power. Like, so if you helped 4 different businesses that create t-shirts and clothing, just clothing brands in general, if they were already making a certain amount in sales and they had different manufacturers and they had different logistics teams, couldn't we develop a Black-owned logistic team that can deliver those items, that can also manufacture those items, and then have stock in that, you know what I'm saying, and kind of like create this ecosystem out of, on Black people only, you know what I'm saying, kind of like you have with the white business owners, you know what I'm saying. They build, that's how they work. They'll use an outside source, then they'll bring it inside, and then they'll combine, come together. I don't see a lot of the Black business owners combining. That's kind of what we were getting at. Like, how do we fix that? Or do you guys have something like, do you all promote that in your brand or in your culture when you're working with the businesses? Yeah. Do you get them to that level to where they can combine with each other and make moves as a corporation versus just being a profitable concept that's just generating a certain amount of money each year?
Well, even in terms of the $1 million stimulus that we're talking about, one of the foundations of that, we won't get into too much detail, but one of the criteria is that you do have to be community oriented, and there are certain categories we won't work with. So under no circumstances are we going to help grow a Black liquor store. Putting a Black face on Black exploitation is not better, So, there's certain industries that we just will not deal with. Nothing obviously illegal. We're not dealing with anything in the pornography industry. I mean, there are a couple of things that we're just not touching. We also, because we do get this, people are like, well, what about multi-level marketing? No. And we're also not dealing with any franchises that are not Black owned. So we get that question a lot. There are real estate companies that are white owned, and they tell the people that, doing this, you're an independent company and this is your business. But there's an entire, national marketing campaign to put those out there. But there are Black real estate brokerages that you can be under, or insurance brokerages. So, if you are going to do one of those, it does need to be through a Black owned entity. But, to your point, our lane is not necessarily, so we're the ecosystem. We're not the facilitator. So I would compare it to, I don't know if there is a comparison. So LinkedIn is a platform where people can connect, and it is the ecosystem to allow people to do those kinds of things. But they make things available so that people can get to that level, but it doesn't literally handpick people and say, hey, come over here and do this, come over here and do that. That's not really our lane. There are entities out there that help people learn to network and things like that. But I think to the greater point, 97% of the Black-owned businesses out there are at that $18,000 poverty level. We have so far to go before we even get to that level. Not that I do think those conversations are helpful and relevant, but before you start talking about organizing, I always say take the airplane air mask approach. If there's most Black businesses are dying and they're not getting oxygen. So the air mask has literally fallen, or not literally, but theoretically fallen or metaphorically fallen from the plane. And it's like, you have got to put this mask on yourself or else you are going to die. And what we too often talk about or do is we look at, well, Well, let me put the air mask over there, or let me put it over here, and let me do this and that. It's like we gotta think 30, 40, 50 years into the future, but we need to act for the now and not be, and this is one of the things I always talk to entrepreneurs about, not be so focused on the long-term vision that we can't have strategic action in the now. So the emergent condition right now is that the majority of Black-owned businesses are solo entrepreneurships that don't employ Black people. The Black unemployment rate is abysmal, and we need to get Black people working. Otherwise, there is no economic empowerment. We need to have Black people who understand the role of politics. Don't get me wrong, I am not a fan of this country or its corrupt political system. However, I do understand that if you're talking about growing businesses and enterprises, you have to have local zoning that will allow you to construct certain things in certain places. You have to have local zoning that can help with housing and tax rates and all these kinds of things. And if we take the approach, I ain't voting, I don't care, federal, national elections, you may take that approach. But if you're not paying attention to what's going on locally, this is what happens. Everybody's like, what do we do about gentrification? You find a time machine and go back in time to when Black people didn't vote and didn't care about what was going on in local politics. And once you use your time machine to go back 30 years when they implemented the policies and the plans that created the gentrification, you actually go back maybe 20 years before that, and you groom young people to get elected into politics, and you groom the people around them to elect them to those positions so that they could be the ones to determine who the judges are. So they could be the ones to put people in zoning and education and housing and all of these political positions that actually control our daily lives. And that's how you solve gentrification. But, to look in 2018 about how I'm going to solve gentrification, which is a plan that was enacted 30, 40 years ago that you're now just seeing, that's not. And so similarly, I hope I'm answering your question. So think of me like I'm in the time machine, and I am telling you now what the Black people 40 years from now wanted you to know. Like we need our eye on the major problem first, and that's getting these 97% of businesses out of solo entrepreneurship, out of having sales below the poverty line. We need to get them being the #1 employers of Black people. And then we need to get them to the place where they can even have the conversations about how to aggregate resources. Right now, there are no resources to talk about for the most part. And so the aggregating is not possible. And, before you can start a partnership, you've got to be solid on your own. And so we're talking about creating the ecosystem that will allow people to be solid enough to even start on this. And really most, if you're starting at the solo entrepreneurship level and you're not profitable and all these things, even once we get you to profitability, you still have some time before you even start to think about what kinds of relationships I can forge.
Righteous. Okay, so I got one more for you, because you with that being said, because you keep bringing up how the 18,000 mark, right? Mm-hmm. Which is crazy, because like you said, for a single person, if a single person makes 30,000, so I think the most I ever made in corporate America was 38,000 a year. I was right around 40,000. That's what I was making, and it still seemed hard for me to make ends meet, because we kind of live outside of our means, whatever the case is, and the same kind of happens in business. People kind of live outside their means, but with us being so many of the Black businesses being focused specifically on Black buyers, that's only 14% of this country. So it's already hard to get Black people to buy from a Black person, and then we only have so many of us. Mm-hmm. Is that the problem? And I know we definitely need to create more businesses that sell to everybody. I know that much. But if we have businesses that specifically focus on Black buying dollars, I mean, we gave Disney, if we talk about, I mean, it's 14% of our country, but it's the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How you get a United States business owner, somebody like me sitting in Louisville, Kentucky, and I open up, say, I sell suits and ties, and I do well for maybe 5 years, and then at the 10-year mark, it seemed like, you know, it's starting to slow down, you know what I'm saying? And I might be out of business by the 15-year mark. You know what I'm saying? Is that due because I'm saying I got all the RBG suits? I only sell red, black, and green suits. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that a problem for some of the business owners?
I think it could be part of the problem, but I think the larger problem is not having a business plan, not having management consultants, not having all of these people, because businesses that have those people in place are having those conversations way before anything happens, and they're prepared for it. You know, it shouldn't just smack you in the face that, oh, wow, something's changed and I have no exit strategy or recourse plan or way to deal with it. So, I mean, in part, who we're selling to and how we're marketing could be a problem. But the other side is, and I meet businesses all the time, they have no marketing strategy. I'm sure in your line of work, you get that also. There is no marketing strategy. There's no plan. There's no, there's no anything. And it's, you know, it's if you build it, they will come. I know I'm dating myself by referencing a film that came out in the 90s. What was that? Was that Field of Dreams? Sorry. That's ringing through Google, so I can't even mute that. So,
I said we got about 8 minutes here, so 8 minutes. So.
I was trying to mute it, but it won't mute. So anyway, but yeah, so there we go. Okay, I apparently couldn't talk and hear that at the same time. But you know, I think most people's marketing, I hear so often, because I kind of informally poll people and ask them about their marketing strategy, and they're like, yeah, my main marketing is word of mouth. And I have a meme that somebody created for me, because I say it so often, that word of mouth is not a marketing plan. You know, it is not a marketing plan. And we can't take the approach, which is what happens so often in the Black community. If you build it, they will come, which is what I was referencing with the movie Field of Dreams. You know, it's, hey, I'm going to focus all my attention on building this business and hoping it's successful and hoping people will show up. And now I'm here and I'm open and I'm just waiting for the customers to show up, and then I'll be successful. That's literally the opposite of how people do it. And usually when I give that as a contextual example, I talk about and I'm not going to name drop any of these businesses that are invested in the prison. Well, yeah, I will. I'll name drop a Walmart that's invested in the prison industrial complex that I have boycotted for the last 12 to 14 years, because under no circumstances will I ever give them a dime of my money. But, you know, if they're going into a neighborhood, they'll put up the sign 8 to 9 to 10 months before it comes, and they'll start flooding the area with flyers and coupons and all kinds of stuff before it even comes in the area, because they understand that it doesn't matter when you open. Having the market ready for you is more important than what you're even selling. And so, you know, it's one of the critical things that we need in terms of how we begin to rethink and retool Black businesses. Yeah, I'll pause there because I know we're running a little on time.
I know, that's righteous. So, Shakti?
Yes. I'm just sitting over here. I literally got my notebook. If you can hear me ruffling the papers, I got my pen. I'm taking my notes. You know, I'm learning every day, all day. This has been a powerful show. So we actually are getting ready to wrap it on up for this evening, and we will pick up next week with the Queen dropping all the jewels. You know what I'm saying? Sharing all this free information with our viewers. So definitely, if you are, you know, starting up your business, or if you have your business already moving and you need some work getting to the next level, definitely holla at Queen Nataki and Let's Buy Black. Well, that's her actual endeavor, part and self. She's a business consultant and so many other things wrapped up in one. So definitely reach out to her for that. Queen, do you have anything?
There's actually a text to join number for Let's Buy Black, and for the persons who want to get involved with the business development. If you're interested in just getting involved with the Let's Buy Black 365 movement, you can text your name and email address. And if you're interested, and I'm trying to get the number because I don't know it off the top of my head, but if you're interested in getting involved with the Let's Buy Black 365 movement, you can text your name and email address. If you're interested in actually getting access to the business stimulus package, you can text your name, email address, and the phrase "scale my business." And that phone number is 505-652-2365. Again, it's area code 505-652-2365. You cannot call that number. It is a text to join number only. But when you text to join it, it will give you, I'm not sure how they connect you with whatever the resource is, I guess via email or with an autoresponder text. But yeah, that would be it. And if you want to reach me directly, I do have a self-scheduler where people can, meet with me, or if you just want to call, you can call, not text, the number 301-244-9072.
Awesome. She already dropped it on you. I was getting ready to say, Queen, drop that contact information, and you already did it. So is there anything else you want to share with our people before we close it out for tonight?
No, I realized the one thing I didn't mention is over the summer, we're going to, Talib is going to be broadcasting a special edition of Connect TV from Brazil. And also for all throughout the season, you've seen the ads for the Sankofa journey to Ghana, West Africa. And for those, I'm so excited. I'm bad, but I just signed up for it and got my deposit in or not my deposit, my payment in for it. And so we're going to Ghana in July. And if you're interested in that, definitely, I would just say go to sankofajourney.com. I'm not the expert on that, but sankofajourney.com, where it's 20-year anniversary. And we're going to do a special broadcast from Ghana of the Connect show. And we're also connecting, you asked about Black businesses and manufacturing. We're actually connecting with Black manufacturers there and raw material producers to help connect resources to entrepreneurs and businesses of scale in the United States. Yeah, so it's going to be an exciting trip. In addition to the culture and the history and the amazing food and the travel and the wood carvers and just the dungeons and the waterfalls and everything, the rainforest. I'm so excited. So yeah, we'll be on the Sankofa journey this July.
Awesome. That sounds like it's going to be a great journey. We are definitely excited for you all to go over there, connect with the mother and soak up some of that good African energy. Yes. So yeah. So family, we'll have Nataki back on next week, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're getting ready to wrap up part 1. As I told you earlier, we have a double header tonight. Join us here. It's 7 p.m. Eastern now. Join us here at 8 p.m. Eastern for our brother Q Butter out of New York, dropping that good African liberation education knowledge for you. Thank you, Nataki. We got mad love for you, and we'll talk to you next week, Queen.
A BB for Hodie.
Peace, love, and Black power.